Woods, a number 2 receiver. They could kind of release him, save money. I think it's time to consider privately trading Derrick Henry. Okay, he's got 1,700 carries in his career, 125 catches. 3 of the last 4 years, he's led the NFL in carries. Folks, first of all, run-centric teams don't win Super Bowls. Ask Nick Chubb and the Browns. How many playoff wins for Zeke? How many playoff wins for the Titans? They don't win. You got to have a guy. Tannehill's now in his 11th year. He's average, slightly above average, and now he's getting hurt more often. Malik Willis isn't ready. Vrabel's one of the smartest guys in the world. Everybody freaks out, but Derrick Henry got to sell at the high point. He came into the league, didn't play a ton early. Over the last 4 or 5 years, he's like a pitcher throwing 300 innings. You got to get out of the deal before the deal gets into you. And I just look around at run-centric teams. They don't win Super Bowls. Hell, they struggle to win playoff games. Nick Chubb in Cleveland. Cleveland's got a great O-line, great running back, offensive coach. Zeke, 1 playoff win. Who's the other one? Christian McCaffrey. How many playoff wins did he have?
Okay. I don't hate this strategy, but I got to ask, what's the next step? Because you are no longer attractive to Aaron Rodgers. You don't have Derrick Henry, and you have no receivers.
No. So what you do is you get draft capital for that left tackle. Derrick Henry's going to fetch something on the market. You're now going to have some cap space because your defense is excellent. Aaron's played with a great defense 1 year. He won a Super Bowl. So this is a great defense. You're getting rid of a running back and a left tackle and a receiver. Okay? Then you'll have money to spend on the market. You already have a young receiver you like a lot out of Arkansas.
Burks is very good.
Very
when he's
good.
Healthy, yes.
You could keep Woods if you wanted and renegotiate the deal so you'd have a solid 2. You draft another receiver. You go on the market.
They've done a good job of just plugging in tight ends, random guys you've never heard of, and they deliver.
I think it's.
I'm a little leery of dumping the left tackle Taylor Lewan.
He's hurt a lot.
You need an offensive line.
I know he's hurt a lot.
Let me counter this. Is there a strategy where the Titans say, you know what, that model that the 49ers had, build up a formidable defense, but plug in a quarterback who can just get it done and have a good offensive line?
Yeah, but the difference is Shanahan's an offensive genius.
Yes.
Vrabel's just a really smart dude. The second thing is they have made San Francisco takes 6-round running backs like Elijah Mitchell and gets to Super Bowls. I mean, they've Kyle Shanahan. I mean, Christian McCaffrey's a great piece. Why? Because he's a receiver.
Yeah.
And Shanahan loves that.
What do you think the market's like for Derrick Henry, a guy with a lot of miles on him?
No. But for a team that needs a running back, you'd give a third-round pick maybe. You got to pay him.
I'd rather have Derrick Henry than a third-round pick.
Well, but Derrick Henry's expensive. So if you get Derrick Henry, going to have to give up somebody else. He's not cheap. Running backs, he's been in this league now a lot of years and a lot of innings pitched. I mean, to me, Mike Vrabel's a smart guy. He's looking around at Burrow, Mahomes, Allen. Now Trevor Lawrence in his own division. I got to go toe-to-toe with 11-year Ryan Tannehill or Malik Willis out of Liberty.
That being said, they were the number 1 seed last year in the AFC. I know they lost, and they are still ahead of Jacksonville in the division this year. I mean, I think we could probably meet a middle ground, JNC Consulting, to deliver something for Tennessee to get them out of it. They're not a fun watch, Colin. Like, nobody wants to see that team in the playoffs.
Well, Vrabel doesn't care about that, but he's too smart not to see the reality is now he has one of those star quarterbacks in his own division. It was one thing when they were all out of division. Now he's got to face Trevor twice a year. And by the way, here comes Bryce Young to Houston.
Maybe Malik Willis has something we haven't seen yet.
Okay.
He's looked very limited in green in a couple appearances.
All right, Greg Cosell's probably listening to us jabber, shaking his head. 43 years NFL films. Well, let's talk about quarterbacks in the league. So here's what continues to bother me about Buffalo. I thought they were out-schemed. Outside of center, I don't love their offensive line. They bail on the run and continue to be ridiculously Josh Allen dependent, which, by the way, I get. He's amazing. On film, I thought it was one of the best losses of the year. I thought Miami had a good plan. They were physical. They ran the ball. What did the tape say about Buffalo and Miami?
Well, I thought that Miami's offense played well. I thought that, when you run the ball effectively, there's not a lot of mystery as to why you run the ball effectively. They moved the interior tackles of the Bills' defense, which normally doesn't happen. Ed Oliver's had an outstanding year. he did not have a very good game. That allowed them to work to the second level where they were able to block Milano and Edmonds. So they ran the ball well. And I thought Tua threw the ball well. He looked like Tua, those quick rhythm throws.
Yeah.
Although I thought there were a couple of plays in critical situations where the Bills had a really good feel for the concepts and they took away throws. But I agree with you about Josh Allen. We've talked about this. This is not a great offensive team. They do not run the ball particularly well or often. Their O-line, you're correct, is probably average at best. They've not really had a second receiver, Collins, step up after Diggs. So they're kind of struggling there. So it's a very Josh Allen-centric team. And I've been doing this a long time, as have you. When teams that have flaws end up getting beat in important playoff games, I'm not surprised by that because those flaws can crop up anytime. Now, last year, Josh Allen had two amazing playoff games. Obviously, they lost to the Chiefs. You almost have to have him play at that level anytime you get to the playoffs. If he's not quite at that level, you wonder if their flaws are going to just bring them down.
It's interesting. Let's move to Kansas City. I want to talk about this.
Yeah.
So we kind of feel like Buffalo, Kansas City, right or wrong, they were in that Ali Frazier bout last year, and I have a feeling they'll meet again. And it's really remarkable. I said this the other day, like Mahomes completed like 20 straight throws against Houston, and in high school, that's absurd. From his temperament to his arm talent to his mobility to his playmaking, he's about as good as anybody I've ever seen play this. But the offense now, because Tyreek's gone, is different.
Totally.
What is the Chiefs' offense for somebody that lives and watches film? What's different about this Chiefs' offense? Dig deep and tell me what you see.
Okay, here's the difference. It's a major difference because what they have done over the course of this season, they have evolved into being a multiple tight end offense team. They now play with 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends, as much, if not more, than any team in this league. Now, they did not do that previously. They were much more of an 11 personnel offense with 3 wide receivers. They don't play like that now. They play with 40% multiple tight ends, maybe more depending on the game. And the other player who we're looking at right now, who has become a really critical piece of what they do, is Jerick McKinnon. Over the last month, 5 weeks, he has really become important, particularly in the red zone. Last week, Colin, McKinnon played 62% of the snaps. Pacheco only 35%. McKinnon had 10 rushes, 8 targets, 8 receptions. So that fits because their pass game is much more condensed. Last week, Mahomes was 36 for 41 with a long completion of 21 yards. And he was efficient. So this offense has evolved in recognition of their talent. So it's a tribute to Andy Reid and the staff and to Mahomes, who is an incredibly smart quarterback, very aware, very instinctive, understands. He can play any way you want him to play, any way that's necessary.
So now I want to bring up a team that may be better than both, Cincinnati. And I've said this multiple times this year, is we tend to think, when we think of great defenses historically, we can name like Dick Butkus or,
Sure,
Richard Dent for the Bears. But with Cincinnati, they don't really have a star, but every time I watch them, they make changes at half and just shut teams down. They do this all the time. So is it scheme or talent? Because this Cincinnati defense, I don't know what the stats say, is the best second half defense I've seen in the league this year.
Well, it's funny you say that because when I watched the tape this past week against Brady and the Bucs, my mind immediately went back to the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs. You probably thought the same thing. It was evident they made some adjustments at halftime. They started playing with 7 DBs. They started rushing 3 with 8 in coverage. They had multiple pressure schemes, better route recognition. And you're right. There's not the one player you say, wow, that team, that one guy is really dominant. They've got good players, though, at all 3 levels of their defense. I know Hubbard's out now, and I guess he'll be out for a number of weeks, but they've got really good players at all 3 levels. And I think the rookie corner they play, Cam Taylor-Britt from Nebraska, he's a really good player, and he brings an attitude, a swagger, a competitiveness to this defense. So, but you're right. Lou Anarumo does not get enough credit, their D coordinator, because he does a really good job in game of understanding what he's seeing, what's hurting him, and then how to take it away.
Before I get to Cowboys Eagles, I want to give a tip of the cap to Brian Daboll, and I said the fact that Brian Daboll is getting strong consideration for Coach of the Year is an indictment of what he's working with. So it's easy for me to say that outside of left tackle, I don't see a lot of talent. Barkley in the left tackle. You tell me, because I think Daboll's in a short list of Coach of the Year. Do the Giants have much offensive talent?
No. And in fact, they have to play a certain way. They don't score a lot of points. Daniel Jones this year has the fewest 20-plus yard completions in the NFL, only about 20. Think about that. That is a very, very small number. So they play close games. So when you play close games, your defense has to be a factor. This is a very aggressive defense. It's Wink Martindale. They blitz a lot. They play a lot of man. That's the way he plays. That's what he believes in. So what they have to do, Colin, is they've got to run the ball. And there have been games this year where they've gotten to the second half and they've had a lead and they've not been able to run the ball. And then they lose. This week, they were able to run the ball. They got the ball with 6 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter and a 5-point lead. And Barkley had 3 consecutive runs for 41 yards.